All right, I hope that video was helpful. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about loudness before we dive into mixing and mastering. So the reason loudness is relevant to us is back in the late 1990s and early 2000s when CDs started to become popular, and especially the early 2000s when people started taking CDs, getting the tracks off of them, and putting them on iPods and making playlists. Well, there was a slight problem that some albums were louder than others. And so when you had a playlist, you might have a song that's really quiet, and then the next one would be blaring loud, and then the next one would be quiet, you'd turn your volume back up, and then the next one would be super loud. And it wasn't desirable, and it also led to mixing and mastering engineers to make their tracks as loud as possible to try and grab listeners' attention. And so streaming platforms in the modern era have reacted by setting loudness, you could call them limits, but they effectively serve to normalize the loudness of all tracks on their platform. And so if some song is above this quote-unquote loudness limit, that platform will turn the song down. And so its peaks will be lower. Songs that are quieter or equal to the target won't be changed, generally speaking. And so some of these targets, YouTube, for example, which is what we're concerned about, has a threshold of -14 LUFS-I. Spotify has a threshold of -14 LUFS-I as well, and that's sort of become a de facto standard. But there are other services like Apple Music that have different standards. So Apple Music, for example, has a standard of -16 LUFS-I. And there might even be services that use a different loudness averaging system, so they might not even use LUFS. But because we use YouTube, that's what we're concerned with. -14 LUFS-I is going to be the number we're concerned with. So, for example, if I upload a track with -10 LUFS-I to YouTube, that's pretty loud. So YouTube would turn it down 4 decibels so that it's no louder than -14 LUFS-I. But if I upload a track with -20 LUFS-I to YouTube, YouTube would keep it as is. So what is the takeaway of this? Well, while the takeaway is really more nuanced than this, I'm going to go ahead and say we ideally don't want any master tracks to be quieter than -14 LUFS-I, just so that our videos are similar in loudness. For example, if we have a concert playlist, we don't have a super, super quiet master followed by a super, super loud one, followed by a super, super quiet one. Now, if there's a concert which had pieces that had a lot of dynamic range or had some really quiet pieces, maybe there's an argument to not follow this guideline. But generally, we want our things to try and match that level of loudness. It's okay to go louder if the genre of music suits that better, but there's no need to because YouTube will turn it down. And for what it's worth, we also want to stand out from other videos outside of the TIO YouTube channel on YouTube. So go out there and win the loudness war. So now that we know some things about loudness, we can read the master meters in Reaper. These are somewhat similar to the individual channel meters. We have the absolute peaks at the top. We have the peaks over the past second of each channel as a line there. And then we have the levels as the 2 bars in the center. But these bars on the side are for loudness metering. You'll have to right-click on the master meter to change it from the default settings to have it read in LUFS. But I have it set to read in LUFS-S. And at the bottom here, I can see the current LUFS-S measurement. And on the sides, it'll show me the current LUFS-S measurements relative to -14 LUFS. And you can change that in the settings as well. But I have mine set to be relative to -14. And so you can see there's 0 right here. And if you go above that, you can go all the way up to 14. And then below that is going to be below -14. And so right now, we're at about -30.5. So that's all before we dive into mixing and mastering. So stay tuned for that.